yang tagmar tole chondo chakso lore chame tenyon na mongma ger le dang nyomo chuso ji ndana ngumbran jamente che dang na dang rgawi me mazut bejan tsigman ger dim ta nyara tamar ba meksam che dang nawa dang rgawi meksam ramjin da de dang dabar shibra sha Tien che nadang rgali zhuzhe deyi rangzhin jibzhin nyun nyutrtok de jesuk pongdang zharwang deyi je lordan rolar nyarjif jebshirftin pagben chedang nawa dang rgawi dengar zadnir pang ledang nyumo wangir je de la demid shirde met jibzhin yangdang tongwi shir jesuk namli Ndechirjang, nyarjir dagnir kiwa dang, che dang gawa nabar stun. Rjatrin jirmit chunyin da stugni marig donam ji kiwa lasu dagdanam tongwa kanyin tehmat do. Pagbi shoyir toba kang, shibi shoyir tartun te tenyid shirnan ruwayi, nyenji tabdang nyarjim chuk.
So we will resume our teaching on Uttara Tantra Shastra. And right now we are on the first chapter, that is Buddha Nature chapter. In this chapter, the later part of this chapter, it has 9 metaphors and so on. But before that, in this part, we're currently learning the 10 kinds of meanings. So if you understand this 10, then later on, when it gets to the 9 metaphors, you find it rather very easy. If you do not understand the previous part, you will have a difficult time to understand the later parts. So, I really hope that we can maintain our sense of enthusiasm towards this teaching. At first, I really thought that the teachings on the Mahayana teaching on the bodhisattvas and so on, those would be easy for people to accept. But when it comes to Uttara Tantra Shastra, when it comes to Buddha nature, I was really afraid that this is too profound for majority of people to accept. But now, by observing your enthusiasm, your attitude, your expression when you're listening, and your the way that you study, all of these shows that you are engaging in learning this sutra very well, and I'm quite pleased. During this study, I really hope that you could persevere. I understand that studying could be boring. Without a sense of perseverance, it would be very difficult to persist all the way to the end. During our discussion group as well as the tutoring group and so on, not many people could persist all the way. There are people who have really good attitude and very smart in terms of studying, but they don't really persist. By observing the people who attend the after-class discussion group, I really feel that lots of people who started off really well, but it didn't persevere all the way to the end. I felt that if they were to persist to the end, then they would become really wonderful in terms of their studies. But also, I understand that maybe because of their health issues, because of their maybe afflictions and karma and maybe devotion, and maybe they start off with good devotion, but slowly their devotion completely dissipates or waning. And in such a way, you lost that kind of force that pushes you to study. Lots of people who disappeared in our discussion group, in our shrine hall. When I do not see them, sometimes I ponder, where are they? It is very easy for one or two people to disappear in the crowd of Sangha because this universe is so vast, you never know where they could go. So sometimes I do feel a sense of disappointment, but not really disappointed at you, because everyone has their own choices and their own space to make choices, and their own path. In fact, everyone's making a choice on this path that is called life. And during this path of life, you continuously to encounter different kind of opportunities, different kind of platforms, and different kind of choices are presented to you, and you can make your own choices as well. Anyhow, you have such freedom. It's only that I feel really saddened. What I want to say is that I really feel that Uddhara Tantra Shastra is such a profound teaching. And I'm not so sure, I was not so sure whether people would be able to accept such profound teaching. But by observing the numbers of people pretending this, attending this class online and so on, I notice that people are indeed enjoying this class and are persisting. As the other day we said in the Analects, once you finish studying, you should continuously to repeat and recite and review. This is quite important. I really hope that people could then build a firm foundation after studying, because after a year or two, if you feel that you completely lost all the knowledge that you've learned in all these classes, that would be such a pity if you lost all the knowledge that you studied. So let's continue from yesterday. Yesterday we talked about the changelessness of Buddha nature, and then we talked about the meaning and how it corresponds to different aspects. So now we're on the fourth aspect, which then it talks about the way generation takes place, or samsara takes place. So generation, or it means samsara, is how our world is. From one aspect, our world exists in a space. it floats in space. From other kind of theories, we can try to understand why it floats instead of falling from the space, especially when our planet is saturated with, majority of our planet is water, and some of the beings are facing up and some of the beings are facing down. So with our own conceptual mind and just trying to think about it, it feels really strange. In fact, just like that, out of the space, the world exists, including the material and as well as the sentient beings all exist. Use the phenomenal world, the material world, we can correspond to our inner world. This is quite interesting, isn't it? In fact, and by understanding this, it could give you great help in terms of practice as well. If we can understand the cosmos, the universe, and if we can then understand that the same way corresponding to our own inner world, in fact, it is quite logical as well. The next part, it says that the improper conceptual activity rests upon the nature of the mind. The improper conceptual activity brings about all the classes of karma and mental poisons. As we said earlier, all the phenomena are just like space. It doesn't have any solid existence. It is space. It doesn't have any existence in it. And then from such space, wind started churning, and then from wind, water started to rain, and then became the Vajra ground. Over here, the improper conceptual activity means the perverted view of taking what is impermanent as permanent, what is suffering as joy, what is non-self as self, and then what is not pure as pure. So there's the imputed ignorance and the ignorance that we're born in. We're born with, but for the bodhisattvas and Buddhas, they do not have such. However, for ordinary beings like us, we have such imputed ignorance as well as ignorance that we're born with. For the ordinary beings, the nature is luminous nature. And we just only obscure it. As wind supports water, the improper conceptual activity creates all different kinds of opportunities for the development of mental poisons and karma. So just as wind, the afflictions continuously to increase, and just like water, how water then how the ground and earth emerges from circle of water being churned. Likewise, the polluted skandhas, entrances, and elements and all the existence consisting of suffering emerge from water like karma and mental poisons. Which means out of space, after a long period of time of changes, this material world has the four phases of destroy and birth, just like how the modern scientists talk about Big Bang Theory. It talks about how before tens and even dozens of billions of years ago, because of the Big Bang, the world is formed. So similarly, Buddha nature is unconditioned, just like space is uncreated. But the sentient beings' afflictions and karma that are the dualistic thoughts, that are the improper conceptual activities. And then because of their grasping, the threefold grasping, then slowly it forms skandha and afflictions and entrances and elements, and then that forms the sentient beings. And then the body that is formed from the skandhas, entrances, and so on will also be destroyed, will also cease. But the alaya will stay in the way that it is unconditioned, in a way, in a form that it is uncreated. So because of such result, it has such causes. We often say that ordinary beings are afraid of fruition, but bodhisattvas are afraid of the causes. The ordinary beings, they don't understand the causes before the fruition. They're only afraid of the suffering that comes when it is already a fruition. But they do not know, they do not understand that there are causes before that. Buddha nature is pure. And inside this Buddha nature, it forms such generation or such samsara. The next part then talks about explanation that the essence is undefiled. The second part then it talks about the nature of mind as element of space in that stanza. It's a bit warm. This is a very important stanza. In fact, Uttara Tantra Shastra is a teaching that connects esoteric to exoteric teaching. Some of the words are not mentioned in Sutrayana, but only Mantrayana. And some of the Mantrayana teachings use the same kind of vocabularies. So over here it talks about the nature of mind is in fact a luminous dhanadhatu. And with the metaphor, it says that it do not depend upon the productive causes, and it does not depend upon simultaneously active conditions, just like the space. So, what does that mean? Such as barley or rice, they need the productive causes. And then, what are these productive causes? They're such as the sunlight and raindrops and so on. And then, if it doesn't have such causes, if it doesn't depend on the conditions, then there cannot be any fruition. Just like that, if there is no productive causes or active conditions, just like space, then how could there be? How could the space be created? So The mind, according to the Pramana teachings, it says that the mind is a luminous cognition. But over here, the luminous nature, luminous Dhammadhatu, is not the kind of mind that we usually talk about, that is only dualistic thoughts or anything. It is, in fact, the luminous Dhammadhatu. And if it doesn't have any productive causes or any of the active conditions, it is not increasing, not decreasing. So in the Buddha Nature Sutra, it talks about this. As well as Avatamsaka Sutra, it says that even if all sentient beings achieve Buddhahood all at once, at this time and before this, the Buddhi neither increases nor decreases. So the nature of Buddha nature of Tathagata Garga did not increase nor decrease. So from the nature of all sentient beings, there is no such increment or any of the decrease either. According to the Great Jewel Sutra, Great Jewel Heap Sutra, where it says that just like how all phenomena does not, just like how all phenomena abide in the space of Dhammadhatu, it doesn't have any increases nor decreases. So just like space, it doesn't have birth or death, and our mind, our nature of mind is just like that. It doesn't have any birth or death. So from the Sutrayana point of view, we can use this metaphor of space. But from the pith instruction aspect of Mantrayana, we can then take it as the metaphor of space is not only a metaphor, rather it is a pointing out instruction. Lots of masters would ask their disciples to then watch their mind when looking into the space. And when looking into the space, the master would ask the disciple to then contemplate your mind is no other than space. When your mind is moving, when your mind is in turbulence or in kind of activity, have any thoughts, at that time, just stare right into space. In fact, the space does not have any increase nor decrease. In fact, the nature of mind is just like that. Before we recognize it, before we recognize the nature of mind, you may feel that I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm anxious, I'm comfortable. And after a little while, you may feel that everything is hopeless, everything is so dark, and everyone around you is just like the yakshas or demons. And then after a while, you may then perceive the world into something really beautiful. Everyone's just like the gods and goddesses, and very kind and compassionate. In fact, our mind fluctuates a lot in different activities, sometimes happy, sometimes sad. But when we recognize the nature of mind, that is no other than the space, not only from the theory, but you have to practice it by looking into your mind. For people who received the pith instructions of Vajrayana, you probably have had such experiences. So just look at your own mind and contemplate how and what is my mind. Especially when we're looking for it. Just like the story of how Manjushri taught the 200 bhikshus, the method that he taught to the 200 bhikshus to watch the mind with the mind.
那个就是在学院居住过的那个拉荣居住过的灯珠法王，就是第一世灯珠法王，他的很多的大圆满的教学当中的话，经常用这个知识虚空，就是直接看那个前面的这个虚空。所以现在很多人的，就是包括我们这个尼玛班的一些藏传佛教的语系，不管是你真我没有证，我就是经常做的是就这样。
Lots of practitioners do that like this.
大家都就特别就是专注，然后旁边的人都觉得说，可能
one-pointedly stare into the space, and everyone feels that is he looking at something in the space?
看虚空有什么可看的？就是
Kambodeva once criticized that what are you looking at in the space? Why are you so arrogant and pretending yourself as a yogi? There are people who pretending to be a true enlightened yogi by staring into the space. In fact, there's nothing to look into the space. By looking into the space, you're looking at the nature of your own mind. By recognizing the nature of your mind. There are people just pretending, and there are people who understand the true method of such peace instruction. Anyhow, I think this one is, this verse is quite profound. When you have time, please do read over again and again. In fact, lots of things are birthless and deathless. We are not only talking about how to recognize it from devotion. We can also understand it from the aspect of logic. Many masters pointed out that in 21st century, the Buddhists should be then practice and studying in a way that is based on logics and analysis. Unlike previously, in the previous centuries, the practitioners can be of the dull faculty who just simply have devotion and not much of the logics. And I think we should have both of this, so that we should have devotion. At the same time, our belief should be able to go through logics and analysis. So now we reach to the last one, that is the summary, where it says that this is clear, luminous nature of mind is as changeless as space. It is not afflicted by desire and so on. The adventitious stains which are sprung from incorrect thoughts. So clear and luminous. When it talks about luminous, it doesn't talk about the kind of light that comes from lights. It talks about the essence or the nature of mind that is pure. It is neither nirvana or samsara. It is not something that is completely empty or completely existent. It is, in fact, clear and luminous. This kind of mind, during your sleep, during your meditation, during the time that you may pass out, at any time, in your meditation and in Bodhisattva's meditative state, this kind of mind does not interrupt at all. In the Pramana, it says that the mind is clear, luminous, and all the impurities are adventitious stains. So the impurities are no other than adventitious, the temporary, but the nature is not impermanent. The nature of it is permanent, and it's just like space. However, the incorrect mental activities could create afflictions and so on. This is called the impurities of affliction. And then there's the impurities of karma, and also the impurity of birth. In Abhidharma, it talks about these three kinds of impurities or stings. In fact, these three are all adventitious. They're like the guests and not the masters. Sometimes the guests live for a long period of time, but they don't really go at all. Some of the students, they stay here for a long period of time. They're not the official students, but they are just there for a long period of time. But this kind of adventitious stings does not block or cover our luminous mind that is completely pure. Also, there are the different kinds of, or all kinds of manifestations, but all these kind of manifestations has the nature of emptiness as well. According to a sutra, according to the methods of all dharmas with no strife Samadhi Sutra, it says that noble or humble, male or female, beautiful or ugly, old or young, such distinctions of these various worldly phenomena is ridiculous. So a magician could then conjure an illusory person or conjured a person to be noble or humble or female or male, beautiful or ugly, old or young, any kind of forms, just as how in our movies there are different kind of manifestations. However, if you were to get attracted and attached to such kind of appearance and manifestation, it is really ridiculous because they're no more than manifestation or a magical conjure person. So you should not take them as something that exists solidly. According to Nagarjuna's Nagarjuna's Shastra, it is called Exposition of Bodhicitta, where it says those who understand the shunyata of phenomena, but also believe in the law of karma and its results are more wonderful than wonderful, more astonishing than astonishing. So when you know that all the phenomena is empty, then how could you believe in the law? Then the law of karma and its results are really wonderful and astonishing. I really hope that you could memorize this as well. If you could understand the profound meaning behind it, that would be even more wonderful. Now, it means that when you understand all phenomena is of this nature of emptiness, but there is still the law of karma and its results. Isn't that wonderful and astonishing? All the phenomena are just like space, but the law of karma and its results still exist. Isn't that astonishing? In our world, when we talk about when we see some phenomena, when we see some people as really rare, and we would then say, wow, that's astonishing. But that's not really astonishing. What is truly astonishing is that the phenomena, all the phenomena, including samsara, is all empty, is of this empty nature. But still, we are bound by this karma and its results. So lots of masters talk about how firm right view is extremely important.
什么是静的话呢？虽然是不成立的，就是非常的这种奇怪，
Our
但是呢，
life, our
就我
world
们还没有证悟到
does
这
not
种
have
境界
any
之前的话
solid
呢，
existence.
因果这个无气因果
But
关系
before
呢
we
这个
understand
是无
such
气的这个成熟
emptiness,
这也
the
是
karma
就谁
and
也
its
不可否认的
results
啊，就是这是毋庸置疑的。就这个问题呢，就是特别特别有意思的啊，就是所以
become
刚才
matured when you
这
do
次诸法公义
create the cause, do
什
have
么
the
二义
cause,
一
and
果
then
这
the
就是这
results
个
will
呢，你们
definitely
大家
come
还
to
是
fruition.
应该再考虑一下啊，就是
So I think you should
这样的道
really
理，就是自己
contemplate
慢慢
upon
的
this
思考，慢
stanza
慢的思维，
slowly
回
and
去的路
slowly,
上的事就是
and slowly
生息
contemplate
自
upon
生
this
息，息有
on
自
the
息
way
有
back home, and memorize and recite it.
对吧？稀奇吗？稀有吗？
Is it wonderful and
有点感
astonishing?
觉，应
Do
该
you
有
feel
吧
that?
啊，有啊，那还可以，
Good if you
我
feel
也
that.
有感觉就好一点了。那接下来我们就讲那个解说必等之差别啊，就
So next one,
首先讲这个
then
无边
we're
缘的
going
生灭
to
的差
talk
别，
about
还有呢
the
就是改变对应这个
next
散合
part,
之
a
差别
summary of
两
the
个方面
way
首先呢，就是讲这个
disintegration
无边呢，就
takes
是远离
place.
生和灭啊，就是这个无边是指的是应该这个如来藏嘛，就如来藏的话呢，其实生和灭都没有，就是这个生也没有，就是如
In
来藏
fact, there's no
有
birth
没有
and
就是
no
今天如来
death.
藏降生了，就是就是今
Can you
天
say
如来藏
that
死了
your
就是我给大
Buddha
家念
nature
过
is
嘛
born
你
today,
没有这样
and
的说法，
tomorrow
对吧？
my Buddha nature is
对吧？
dead, I
没有
have
这
to
样的
chant
说法。
Om Mani Padme Hum to it?
那什么样呢？就是一叶破碎当，非宁次正成。
It is not brought into existence by the water of karma, of poisons, and so on. Hence, it is also not consumed by the cruel fires of dying, falling sick, and aging. So the nature of mind,
就是业和烦恼，就是我们前面就是
as we said, the karma and afflictions are just like water and wind and earth. All of these,
就是依靠如来藏而产生的，就是这个可以这么说，如
in
来藏而
fact,
现现的。
sprung from Buddha nature.
但是呢，这个业或烦恼也好，或者说是我们的这个
But
罪、
karma
地、
or
风
afflictions
这些能不
or
能
the
产生这
water,
个虚空呢？就是不能
earth,
产生
and
虚空啊，就是我们
wind,
就
do
是
they
产生虚空就是没办法的。
could
水
they
产生虚空
create
也没办
space?
法的。可能
In
一
fact,
名
that's
学一
not
名的人
possible.
应该就是
For the
会
ones
说
who
啊
studied
我们
the
这个水就变成水汽了，
Pramana
就是产生
teachings,
虚
the
空，其
Buddhist
实不是
logic,
水汽虚空本
you
来就是无为法，就是它没有
sometimes
能
would
生
like
死
to
所
argue
以
that
生
water
命当
could
中就是这个也
evaporate
是不成立的。
and then
那
it
这样的话
becomes space.
也
That's
和
not
这个
true.
烦恼
It
就是
it
能不
doesn't
能这个
become the
产生这
space.
个如来
It
藏光明这个
evaporates
前
into
所
the
未有的
space.
这个心呢，不可能产生的，因为它是就我们前面讲的一样，就是不是就是
So
因缘这个
this
作色的
luminous
啊，
mind
就是
does
非定
not
之
sprung
真
from
就是
anywhere.
这个如来藏呢，就是不是依靠
The Buddha
这
nature
种这个业啊、烦恼啊，就是众生的
does not
这个因
rely
接
on the
触啊，诸如
karma,
此类的这些世
on
俗法
the
的
afflictions,
就根本不可
or
能
on the
这个产生
skandhas,
或者是形
elements,
成这个如来
or
藏。原因
entrances.
是什么呢？就是它是
None of
就
those
是
could
是完全
create
是像虚
Buddha
空一样的
nature.
这个无为法的东西啊，就无为法呢
But
就
Buddha
是
nature
就不
is
可能
just
这
like
个
space
就是
that
产
is
生。如果无为法是
uncreated by
能产
anything,
生的话呢，
not
那就是
dependent
什么
on
非觉
anything.
则密啊、觉则密啊，或者说是这个使女的儿子等等，就是这些也是可以这个产
If
生的，就没有的。
You say that
那同样
space
的
is
道理，我
created
们
by
这个
something.
实践当
Then
中
you
的
could
这样的
say
这个
that
如来藏的
the
话呢，就是会不会因为
barren
虚空的
woman
话呢，
give
就是
birth
对
to
这
a
个
son.
祸啊，就是这些呢也没办法就是毁灭吧，就是所以我们这个
Because it is
报
not
信论当中呢，一会
created,
儿用
therefore
水，
it is
一
not
会儿用
consumed
风，
and
一会儿
destroyed
用
by the
大
cruel
地的
fire
一
of
会儿用
dying,
火来
falling
比喻
sick, and
所以
aging.
弥勒菩萨经常
Sometimes
就是我
in
们
this
常见的这个地
text
水
we
火风
see
来
that
给我们比喻
the
啊。那么
metaphors,
这样的话，就是我们这个实践当中的话呢，就是
Lord
有这
Maitreya
个
uses the metaphor of water,
死
sometimes
亡
of
的这种
wind, sometimes
火
of，
还有这
fire.
个病痛
So
的
the
火
fire of
衰
death,
老
the
的火，
fire
就这
of
些烈火呢，
falling
会不
sick,
会
and fire of
这个
aging.
焚烧这个如来藏呢？就
Can
是
they
这个也是
burn
不可
Buddha
能的
nature
啊，
then?
就不管是
That is not
结魔火也好
possible.
还有我们的
Let
这
it
个
be
地狱
the-
火也好，自性火的话呢，从来都是我们
Let
前
it
面
be
讲
the
的这个虚空是
end
从来
of
也是没
time
有
fire
被
or
他们就
the
是焚
hell
烧过，
fire
就没有
or the ordinary
被他们
fire.
焚
None
烧
of
过。
them
那
could
这样的话呢，
burn
我
space
们
just
这
like
个
that.
火呢，就是
The
就是
Buddha nature
老
cannot be
老死
burnt.
病，就是或者说是病和老和还有这个死的话呢，
when it comes to sickness and aging and death, they could not destroy Buddha nature.
另外有一个汉地的那个唯一当中的话呢，就是什么这个自
In
信
the Wei Dynasty's translation of this text, it also have the stanza where it says
散坏是吧？就是散是
where it says that the fire could not the fire of incorrect view cannot destroy the Buddha nature, the water of afflictions cannot destroy Buddha nature, and the fire of old age, sickness, and death cannot burn out the Buddha nature. So this is included in the Wei Dynasty's translation. So there's some difference over here. Anyhow, the point is that Buddha nature does not have any ceasing or birth at all. It cannot be destroyed or burned out by the fire of afflictions, nor of the fire of old age, sickness, and death. Some of the metaphors included, such as in the metaphors of the four elements, the earth, water, and fire, and wind. Fire is usually used as a metaphor of destroy, and this is not included in other commentaries, but it seems that these three metaphors are then used to talk about the birth, abiding, and destroy. So fire usually talks about the destroy aspect.
那接下来呢，就是讲这个对应这个三火的差别就对应三火的差别。当知芥末火、地有平常火，以此呢就是如这个四火、冰火、极乐。
How can this be understood in its given sequence? And I resemble the fire at the end of time, a ride of hell, and an ordinary fire. So, how the death, sickness, and aging can be corresponding to the three kinds of fire. How is it compared then? From the aspect of a material world till the end, we usually talk about the end of the world. The world was then destroyed by the seventh fire and one great water that destroys this world completely. That is called the fire of the fire at the end of time.
然后呢，就是我们这个有情世界的话呢，就是在地狱里面，不管是复活地狱也好，还是这个无间地狱，中间有8个热地狱。那么热地狱的这个火的话呢，其实是比我们世间的这个火还要这个热度，就是它那个温度是特别高的。那么它呢，就是能焚烧就是我们这个有情世界的这个整个无云的这个身体就是地狱众生。
The fire could then destroy the skandhas of sentient beings.
我的举手轮现在忘了，怎么办呢？你们谁给我讲一下
？I think I've already forgotten lots of the knowledge taught in Abhidharma.
地狱众生的色影是怎么产生的？
How does hell realm beings have their forms? Because of the karma? Manifestations?
好嘛
Okay.
那就应该是对吧？让这个焚烧就是这个地狱众生的这种身体就是身体，
So
这是
such fire could burn
然后我们世间的一个平常的这些火的话，自性火或者平常火的话呢，它让这个燃烧就是所有的这些燃料，就是木材也好，房屋也好，就是这些都会烧坏，就是这是他们的这个三个特点吧，就是七世界和有情世界的，还有可能有情世界当中的这个部分的这种燃料呢，就是依靠自性火来就是燃烧的。
all
当然
the
这个可能自信火的话呢，就是它也是象征
ordinary
性的，就是
fire
燃烧我们的这个
in
气世界，
one
就是
way
巴西的火
is
啊，然后有
symbolized
燃烧，就是
it
我们
is
这个里面的有
it
很
could
多
burn
成千
out
上万
the
的动物啊、人
forests
类啊
of
这样的，然后
Amazon
同时呢也燃烧
or
就是
human
里面的
beings
这
or
个生命啊、
or
草木啊
animals
这样
or
的。
forests
那么
or
这三个呢，就是我们可以
vegetations
对比
and
啊，
so on.
就
It
是
could
实
burn
际上
out
是
all of
这
those.
个
In such way, we can
就是
make
我们的这个
comparisons.
死亡呢也相当于是一个火一样的，一
Death
个延续
is
不断的
like
这个
fire.
生命呢，就是最后就是会坏的啊。我们每个人的
The life
每个
could
人的
be
这种死活
destroyed
的话呢，不
by
知道什
such
么时候出
fire
现，
of
就是
death.
让我们的
And
生命就
nobody
是
knows
最后
when
啊，就有
this
些人可能是
fire
得什么
will
脑溢血啊，就有些人是得什么，
when
就这个
such
时候就是
death
火
will
就出
dawn
现
to
了
each
啊，就
and
是
every one of us.
有些人就是可
Sometimes
能
it
慢性
comes
病就是很长
rather
时间
quite
就折磨，
suddenly.
有些人
Sometimes
是可能
it's
短短的
very
时间当中
acute.
啊，
Sometimes
就是这样
it's
的，这叫做是
because
死
of
火，就是让我
chronic
们像魔戒
illness.
火一样的，
So
整
this
个这个
is
世
the
界呢，
fire
就
of
是最后的
death
末尾
that
啊。
is just
其实这
like
里面很有
the
象征的意思吧。
end
比如
of
说一
world,
个人死
end
的
of
话，对
time
这个人
fire
来讲是这个世界已经
that
结束了，
destroys
就是应该是
this
一个魔
world.
戒火，
That
对吧？就是这
destroys
样的。
the culprit.
然后那个我们的这
So
个
that
疾
is
病的话呢，
called
就像
the
地狱火一样的，
so
就
the
身体产
the
生疾病的时候非
fire
常
of
非常的
death
痛苦啊。
is
就
just
原来
like
特别强壮，就是
the
有
fire at
力
the
量、
end
有
of
力气
time.
的人，一
And
生病的
then
时候呢，
sickness, the fire of
不
sickness.
行，这里也痛，那里也痛。真的话，这种不去就是什么麻雀，就是
It,
被
and
10
people would
度
feel
10度
that it
击中
hurts
的麻
here
雀
and
一
it
样的，
hurts
就是
there.
10度击中的麻雀的话
As
呢，
a
就是
Patrol
一动
Rinpoche
不动，
said
就是动都不了。
that
我们生病
someone
甚
who's
至一点
ill,
感冒，就是或者是一点点的话呢，都不
then
行了。就是这是像地
they
狱
are
火，就是
like
到
a
处众生一样。
sparrow that is
然后
hit by a
最后一个
stone.
是什么
They
呢？就
cannot
是
move at all.
衰老的
So
话。
sometimes
那么这个
even
呢，
a
我
small
们的这个
cold
清晨呢，
could
就是
make
慢
you
慢
feel
就
rather
就
very
变了，
weak.
就是刚
So
才那
this
个
kind of
这
fire
种自
is
信火呢，就是燃烧的
corresponding
原
to
来
the
是什
fire
么
of
森林啊，就是放物啊这些，
fire
烧完了以
of
后什么
hell
都没有
realm.
了啊，就什么都
And
没
then
有了。
ordinary
所以
fire.
就是年轻的时候特别好看，然后老了以后的话呢，
Ordinary
自己找
fire
自己的镜
corresponds
子
to
的
the
时候，
fire of
就有些
aging
人很生气，就
that
是把镜
is
子就是
constantly
扔了，知道
going
吗？
and
其实不是
it
这个
happens
镜子
to
来害你的，
everyone.
你自己老了，就是
People would
不应该
then
这
look
样的。
into
就
the
是
mirror
真是
and
我
they
听说是
hated
有这样
what
的，
they
就是
see
就
and throw their
因为
mirrors
不看
away.
一眼，就是
In
这一
fact,
看呢，
that's
觉得
not
自
the
己心情
mirror's
不舒
fault,
服，
isn't
然
it?
后就开始
People
这样的，
don't
就是
like
这
how
种
they
变
look
化呢，就是
in
像
their
什么样，
age.
就是
They
自信
want
火一样
to
的。
be
那
how
么
they
这三
looked
种
when
呢，
they
就
were
是叫
young.
这
So
个
this
次第的，就是
corresponds
这
to
种
the
变化，
fire
就是
of
次第的
to the
变化，
ordinary
就是
fire
那
that
个
is the fire of
无著菩
aging.
萨的注释里面就是引用了那个《
According
曼
to
经》啊，就
Sanga's
《曼经》里
commentary,
面说
he
是这个
quoted
所谓
from
的这个
Shrimala
四的
Sutra.
话呢，就
He
是
said
更
that
坏，就是这个猪更坏，
death
那个我们的这个
is
更呢，就是
the
会坏
death
的
of
意思。然后所谓
faculties,
的这个肾呢，就是产生的话呢，那么就是
and the birth
叫什么啊？就是猪更呢，就是从肾，就是它从性
is
这个
the
产
birth
生，就是
of
神脉经里面就
faculties.
是肾和四呢，就是主要是
So
按
in
那个更
Shrimala,
上面啊，就
it
是一个是
and
更坏坏
how
的
it
四，这个四
explains birth
更
and death,
新产生
it
的
talks
四呢，
about it
就是
from
叫
the
这
aspect
个
of
坏，
the
就是
birth
叫
and
这
death
个肾啊，
of
就是
faculties.
身四方面呢，就是也这样的这种吸收。但不管怎么样呢，我们如果真正这个得到了一些真
Anyhow, if
就真悟啊，就是这样的
we
话呢，
have
就是
some
实际上就是
realization,
对这个生老死病呢，就是可以
then
远
we'll
离
be
的。
able
就像
to
有一个大乘的这种虚空藏啊
be
正法经啊，就是
unfettered
这个
by
经里面
birth,
说这
death,
个
old age, and
什么这
sickness.
个什么
According
老病死
to
法呢，就是即梦里，然后少乱世界呢，就是注重生啊，就是这种老和病和死的话呢，就特别可怕的，就是它会扰乱就是我们的这
According
个
to
世间
the
的这个每一个众生。
teachings of
然后不老不死
the
安乐们呢，我出家为请求故，就是其实
Mahayana
通过
Bodhisattva
出家的这种这
sutra,
个修
it
行
says
呢，
that
最后
old
呢
age
就是
is
到达这
and
个不老不
sickness
死的
and
这
death
种快
are
乐道。就
vicious.
像但是
It
释迦牟尼佛呢，就
disturbs the
看到
mind
就
of
是
all
城
the
外
sentient
呢，
beings
有
in this
很多这
world.
个生老死
So
病的状况。
the
然后最后
the
呢，
happy
自己
gate
这个寻
towards
找一个什
no
么样
death
呢？
and
就是
no
永远就
old
是不
age.
生不死的，
Therefore,
就是这么
I
一个
vow
就
to
永恒的这个
renunciate
道啊。
and practice with diligence.
选择了这个路之后呢，就开始出家为僧
So
就是正悟，就是转法轮，
they,
大家也应该清楚诸如此类的很多
because of such old age, sickness, and death is so vicious. Therefore, as a bodhisattva, they would then renounce it to practice diligently for the sentient beings as well as themselves. So, practice with such kind of pure practice is so important. Lots of masters, they talk about the practice of Sravakam and Pradika Buddha, and then the different practice of Mahayana Bodhisattvas. So Shravakas and Pradika Buddhas, Shravakas would then first to meet a good teacher who teaches them, and then to practice. And the Pradika Buddhas would then enter into retreat areas to realize the teaching, because with the teaching but without practice, it won't help anyone. And then eventually, after you attend the realization, you should liberate and benefit sentient beings like a bodhisattva. So these are the three kinds of practices according to the three yanas. So previously, we've already studied how the mundane beings are in terms of where the Buddha nature resides. I think this is really well taught. Really well taught by Lord Maitreya. And this one concludes the previous part. The next part started talking about the bodhisattva's aspect. The first one, unchangingness in the partly unpurified and partly purified phase. And the first part has two aspects, which is extensive and then specific. Extensive and brief explanation. Brief and extensive explanation.
下面就是讲，解脱啊，就是解脱生死于
The way bodhisattvas appear as being subject to change, although they are not. So, having realized thatness, the nature of the Dharmadhatu just as it is, to those of understanding are released from birth, sickness, aging, and death. Though free from destitute of birth and so on, they demonstrate these, since by their insight they have given rise to compassion for beings. So, above the first bhumi, the bodhisattva has already attained the realization and level that is devoid of birth, sickness, old age, and death. They are devoid of any sickness and aging and all of these. So in the ultimate truth aspect, in the ultimate nature of the bodhisattvas, they've already realized the truth, the nature. Therefore, they're devoid of having to suffer from the birth, old age, sickness, and death. Although they've realized such, though free from the destitute of birth and so on, such as afflictions and birth and all of those. And because of that, they have wisdom. And they then voluntarily come to this world with compassion. on one hand, they have already then realized the nature of birth, old age, sickness, and death. They can definitely just not be reborn in the samsara, but because of their great compassion, they voluntarily born in this world for the sentient beings, to benefit the sentient beings, and manifest in the way that they live the same way as the mundane beings. According to Vimalakirti Sutra, it says that in Vimalakirti Sutra, I think you probably remember when Vimalakirti was asked that who is your father, who is your mother, who is your, what is your job, and so on. And then at that time, Vimalakirti said that he may manifest old age, illness, and death to accomplish the liberation of the host of beings, comprehending that all things are like phantasmagorical transformations. His penetration is without hindrance. So the bodhisattvas then would manifest to be reborn in this world. In fact, this is quite important because bodhisattvas, although they are in this world, but they do not suffer. But they come to this world because they have great compassion. I really hope that you could remember this. And what does this mean? The noble have eradicated the suffering of death, of dying, falling ill, and aging at its root, which is being born due to karma and poisons. There being no such cause, there is no such fruit. Which means the bodhisattvas, after attaining bhumis, because they've already eradicated the because they've already eradicated the different kind of mental poisons and karma and mental activities at its root. The previously we've already previously stated the three kinds of great suffering, that is dying, falling ill, and aging. In fact, they've already eradicated all of these kind of three sufferings at its root. Why don't they have these kind of sufferings? It is because the karma had already, the karma and afflictions, the mental poisons had already been completely cut off at its root. And the fact that the bodhisattvas do not have karma, do not have the incorrect thoughts, they do not suffer. In the Tibetan version, it says that because the bodhisattva do not have karma and mental poisons, therefore they do not suffer from the suffering from dying, falling ill, and aging. So because there's no incorrect thoughts, there's no karma, there's no mental poisons, therefore they do not suffer. And when they are benefiting sentient beings, it is rather quite easy for them. Sometimes we feel that how pitiful some bodhisattvas, they did so and so. Oh, as an ordinary being, we feel sorry for the bodhisattvas. They must have suffered. Sometimes the ordinary beings may feel that. But in fact, bodhisattvas do not have suffering, do not have birth, age, and sickness and death. They do not suffer at all. But why do they manifest in such a way? In fact, it's no other than manifestation. What does that mean?
变化啊，就是它本来是没有这些变
Next
化
one
啊，
it says
它没有这
that
个
the
变化。
way they
那
appear
么
as
刚才前面的这
being
个校长
subject
的
to
话
change
呢，
out
大
of
家
their
也应该
compassion.
经常能背
I
到
think
就
the
最好，
previous
就是
one
因为
you should memorize
这
it
个
as
教
well.
程呢，就是在不同的这个场合当中，就是前辈大德们经常也是用的啊，就是这个甚至是没有这个
Lots of the previous masters quote this quite often
病和苦啊，就
to
是
talk
没有
about how
这些
bodhisattvas do
这个
not suffer.
因为这些呢都是业火产生的，但是业
Because
火
all
是
of
它没有
these
的缘故，
are
就是这样讲。然后下面
all
呢
of
就是
these
像这
sprung
个
from the
就是有悲心
karma
产生
and
啊，就是
afflictions, and
真
bodhisattvas
间呢
have
就是真如
already
一超
eradicated
一
them
生道
completely, therefore they do
然
not suffer
被
from
尊
these.
视现身色即
So since
老
they
病啊，
have
就是
seen
他这里
reality as it
生
is,
者的话呢，就
they are
是他已
beyond
经完
being
全
more
见到
and
了
so
这
on.
个
Yet
真如，
as
就
the
是如来藏
embodiment
就
of
是那么
compassion
这种人
itself,
如来藏的话
they
呢，
display
如来
birth,
藏的真
illness,
正的本来
old
面
age,
目的话呢，
and
他已
death.
经超越
So
了
the
就
true
是
face
所有
of
的这个轮
Buddha
回的这
nature
种生老
has
死
already
病啊，就是
completely
就
surpassed
是
the
这轮回当
birth,
中产生的各种各样的。
the
那
birth,
这样的
old
话呢，
age,
是不是
age,
他就
sickness,
永
and
远也
death
不
in
会
the
实现在
samsara?
轮回当
But
中
does that
并
mean
不
that
是这样
they
的，就是他呢
never, ever
就是看
enter
到就
into
是很多
samsara
众生呢
or
没有
manifest
懂
in
到这
samsara?
样的
No,
这
it
个
is
道
not.
理，所以在众
Because
生面
when
前
they
呢，就是
see
他
that the
实现
sensibilities
就是
still do not
这
get
个降
such,
生，实
still
现
do
呢
not
就是
understand
死亡，
such
实现
profound
呢就是
meaning,
这个衰老，
therefore they
实
would
现什么呢？
manifest
就是产生这个疾病。
in the
那
way
么这
that
样的
they
话呢，
also
实际
have
上是
oldness,
众生呢，
sick,
就是也完全是
birth,
可
old
以
age,
就是度化。
birth,
比如
old
说我
age,
们有些
sickness, and
高
death,
僧大德呢，就是他
in
对
order
这
to
个真
benefit
正
the
的一些
sentient
菩
beings
萨的
and
这个
liberate
化
the
现呢，
sentient beings.
因为他的
As
这
some
个
masters,
涅
they
槃
would
和缘起
manifest
的
in
话呢，
such a way
让
so
这个很多人就是对这
that
个
they can
这种
benefit
这个大菩
beings
萨有信
accordingly.
心的人的话呢，像这么了
People
不
who
起的
have
大菩
great
萨的话呢，最
devotion
后呢
towards
实现这个涅槃，实现
great
圆寂的话，那我们就
masters
是
who
就
they
有什么
consider
可
as
说的呢？就
bodhisattvas,
像佛陀，像佛陀
then
那样的
they
这样
would
的
feel
圣像，他
that
最后呢，
such
就是
great
在梭
master
罗
even
苏
manifested
梭
in
罗
the
双
way
苏
that
这个当中呢，就是实现圆寂的话，那我们的这个区
that
区如
he
生
also
有什么可
does
考的
suffer
啊？
at
就
a
是有什么
death,
可考
then
的？
we
我
should
们会
then
就是通
not
过
to
他的
rely
这种
upon
这
anything at
个
all
就是
because
实
there's
现
nothing
圆寂呢，就是
reliable
也产生这
in
个无
this
常性
world.
的，
So
有些是以此而
whenever
证悟的。
the
还
people
有一些
with
呢，就是实现这个
devotion
圣
see
病
the
了，就像佛
masters
陀的话呢，他在 不
manifest
管是在
the
因
death,
地的时候，
then
甚至
they
在过
will
地的时候呢，
understand
就
the
是在佛经里
impermanence.
面也经常讲，
When
因为我
they
今天这个
see
图腾啊，
the
以前这
masters
个释
or
迦族的这个
Shakyamuni
这个
Buddha
业缘的关
appeared
系啊，
as
因为我
having
今天呢，就是
headache.
什么这个教就是已经刺上这个经
He
济
said
树啊，
that,
还有
well,
因为我
I'm
今天的
having
背
headache
痛啊，就
because
是
of
佛陀
so-and-so.
在像这样
My
的这种
feet
现象，佛陀都
is
有经常有
hurt
这个
because
生病
of
的现象
so-and-so.
的话，那我
My
们这
back
个
is hurt
很
because
多
of
其他人
so-and-so.
对这个轮回的真
And
相呢，也
by
会有
hearing
这
such
种
stories from the
有这
enlightened
种
ones,
这个
the
不同的
realized
这种
ones, that
这个处理
ordinary
性啊，
beings that they
我都想
would
以前我们
give
那个
rise
上师
to
如意宝的话呢，就是
renunciation
每次都
and
就
understanding
是
of
生病啊，就
karma.
是住医院呐，我自
Sometimes
己也
when I
经
think
常
of
就是
Pontsog
去
Rinpoche,
这
I
个
also
就
sometimes
跟着这个上师就是去照顾啊，照
would
顾的过
go
程当中，每
with
次都是在
Pontsog
医院
Rinpoche
里
and
面，
take care
有
of
时候
him.
冷射术一
And
些病人啊，有时
sometimes
候冷射术一
I
些护士啊，
notice
有时候
that
冷射术一
how
些这个
Pontsog
医生啊，
Rinpoche
我想哇，这个上师的。
would be able to magnetize and then expound Dharma to some doctors, to some nurse, and so on. I am not only saying this, in fact, this is my understanding. And the more I notice, the more I feel that it is only because in the hospitals there are so many sentient beings and they need to hear the Dharma. That's why Pontsog Rinpoche went there. He got sick and then had to go to hospital.
然后到了这个年迈的时候呢，哇，就是就现象上的话呢，就很多就是可能跟我们普通人一样的，就是有点这个就很多方面记忆啊，包括这个表达有一些就不同的时候呢，这时候就是可能感觉得到，就是这个轮回就是这样的，像这个这些菩萨那么了不起的，最后实现就是生老死病的话，那我们就是更不用说，所以我们对整个这个轮回的话，还是产生极大的这种。
Such phenomena happen and such manifestation happens, and in such a way I felt renunciation from samsara. There is a sutra, the name of it is 叫会害，
就是会害经吧，就是无著菩萨就引用了好多次。
It is the Wisdom Ocean requested a sutra, within the sutra it tells the story in the commentary, I think, where a prince fell into the toilet. And the entourage, as well as the mother of the prince, they did not want to dive in and save him because it really stinks and really dirty. So nobody jumped in to save the prince. They were crying and they were asking for help, but no one jumped in, except later the father of the prince came and jumped into the toilet to save his son. So given this story, Buddha explained, saying that this toilet is the samsara, is a metaphor of samsara, and this person who fell into the toilet is a metaphor of sentient beings. And the father of the prince is the bodhisattva, who has skillful means as well as bravery and courage. And the mother and entourage, who were very much in pain but did not went in to save him, are the Pratika Buddhas and Shravakas. So bodhisattvas have very different actions. They would jump into the samsara to save the sentient beings, just as the father jumped into the toilet to save his own son by himself. Just as that bodhisattvas would jump into samsara to save the sentient beings by themselves. So to save the sentient beings by themselves is the action of bodhisattvas. Save as much as possible. When you're saving them, when you're helping them, are the sentient beings feeling gratitude for you? Maybe not. I quoted from Carnegie, Carl Carnegie, where I think also he quoted from a British scholar. He said that not all beings knows how to feel gratitude. It is only the decent ones knows how to feel gratitude. Maybe because of the nature, maybe because of in terms of maybe because of the Westerners' point of view, where then he gives this example of a person who is a judge, saved 78 people. But later on, none of them went to him and thanked him. Also, he said that there was only one person at the time of Christmas. He remembered that there was a person at the time of Christmas gifting other people of $300, but none of those people who received the money thanked him. There was another story of how Jesus, on the way to Jerusalem, he saved 10 leopards, 10 people with leprosy. And out of the 10 people, only one person showed gratitude. The other nine people all ran away without showing any gratitude. A bodhisattva bodhisattva will then save sentient beings without any complaints or any sense of regret. Sometimes I contemplate upon myself that I sent about a few thousand students to university through our charity, but lots of them do not send any letter or any gratitude letter. The other day I said, the other day I was having a meeting, and I asked the person who was in charge of the buildings over here and said, well, had anyone thanked you? And he said, no, not really, except there was this one person who gave me some apples. So if you want to make a contribution only because you want to receive gratitude, I think this is not really reasonable. In the West, I think the costume is that they will be nice to you when they're happy, and they will then send you some thank you notes or so, and that's the sense of gratitude already. That's their way of showing gratitude already. Although they have Thanksgiving and all of these kind of festivals, but the true sense of thanks, true sense of gratitude, I think, it still resides in the East, in the Eastern tradition. So that is why Carnegie said that a majority of people do not know how to show gratitude or do not know how to feel gratitude. Only the decent ones knows what gratitude is. There was a historical story of China, Cao Cao, who was the emperor. When he was poor, a family was really nice to him, and after he then became an emperor, instead he didn't know how to show gratitude to them or pay back their kindness. And then at that time, he decided to kill the family who helped him. I think this is quite a complex feeling, that at a time that they don't really understand how to, they do not know how to repay other people's kindness. Also, they want to erase off their past history that they did not like. Just like some students, they just want to erase the kind of history that he did not want other people to know. So, in our world, the human mind is rather quite complex, especially in China, in some of the very complex culture. Even at the times that you feel that they should definitely feel gratitude, but they don't. Just as when people do not have any authority, they were nice to everyone, but once they become the one with lots of power, they would then use such power or even abuse such power to create obstacles for other people. Similarly to some corporations, after a long time of training their employees and giving lots of benefits to the employees, but when the employees gained some ability, they would then leave such corporation and use their resources and experiences to harm the corporation or people who showed great kindness to them before. But in Mahayana teaching is really great. When it comes to such complex world, we should then have skillful means to face our society. When the society and the world is really dark, if you have only a small flame of lantern, your light will be easily to be overcome by the darkness.
就按照这个东方文化也好，尤其是我们这个藏地的话呢，就是感恩这一
In the
点呢，
East,
确实是
especially
好
in
像
the
现在也
Tibetan
是
plateau,
有
I
个非
think
常
the
就
teaching
是
of
这种
gratitude is
根深
of
蒂固的一
great
种这个理念。但现在的年轻人的这种这个就心理的
But the
话
young
呢，就是
people
也是
in
随
this
着这个可能
generation,
西方的一些
maybe
现实
because
主义
they've
也好，自我
changed,
中心也好，或者说是物质主
maybe
义也好，
they've
就
been
很多
influenced
这种
greatly
这个
by
信
the
念呢也不断
Western
地在变
culture,
化
such as
啊，就这样的这
materialistic
个社会当
views,
中
such
能不能
as
用上就是大
the
乘的无有条件的饶益一切众生的这样的这
utilitarian
种精
view
神呢，
and so
也很
on.
难说。但不
Then
管怎么样呢，我
they
们还是
are
要非常的这
changed.
个赞叹，就是这些大菩萨们呢，在
We should
在轮回当中呢，就是实现各种形象
compare
的就是
ourselves and look
利益
at
众
how the
生啊，
great
就是这一点
bodhisattvas
是我
were,
们也应该
and
随序
do
对吧
not hesitate and courageously
讲
jump
的
into samsara to benefit sentient beings. I think we should all study from that kind of spirit, and we'll stop here today.